Rhaenyra has the throne. It is she who rules now.
Forward! Stand your ground!
My patience has its bounds. Have I not shown you mercy?
This is finished!
A man crawls through the mud where a dragon once stood, and he used to be the most feared knight in Westeros. Something broke Criston Cole between Episode 4 and this trailer, and House of the Dragon Season 3 Episode 5 wants you to feel it before you understand it. There's a version of Criston Cole that fans met back in Season 1, upright, immaculate, the Golden Knight of the Kingsguard who once looked untouchable even when he was making terrible choices. The man in this new trailer is not that person. He's trudging through what looks like a churned-up crater in the earth, and the shape of that crater matters more than it seems. Vhagar is the largest living dragon in Westeros at this point in the story, and when a creature that size plants its full weight down, it doesn't leave a footprint, it leaves a scar. If that's really what Cole is walking through, the show is telling us, without a single line of dialogue, that he has just crossed paths with the most dangerous weapon in this entire war and survived it, but barely. His armor is gone. His face and clothes are streaked with grime like he's been running for days rather than marching in formation. For a character built almost entirely on rigid discipline and personal pride, losing his armor isn't just a costume detail, it's a symbol. That armor represented his identity as a knight, his authority, his control. Stripped of it, he looks like any other desperate soldier trying to survive, and that's a massive fall for a man who spent 4 episodes convinced he was untouchable. To understand why this matters so much, you have to rewind to where Episode 4 left him. Cole had been pushing an aggressive, arguably reckless strategy, insisting his forces could take on a much larger army because of discipline and ferocity rather than raw numbers. It's the kind of overconfidence that reads exciting in a war room and catastrophic on an actual battlefield. The trailer backs that theory up hard, because right after we see him in that ruined, muddy state, there's a quick cut to tents fully engulfed in flame. Given the timing, these are almost certainly his own camp, not the enemy's. If your own tents are burning while you're on the run without your armor, that isn't a battle you're winning, that's a rout. And the most likely culprits are the River Lords and the northern forces aligned with the Blacks, the exact soldiers Cole was so dismissive of when he was busy convincing himself that superior will could overcome superior numbers. While all of that unravels for the Greens on the ground, we cut to something completely different in tone, a small council scene with Rhaenyra, and she says something that lands with real weight, that her patience has limits. On the surface, it sounds like frustration boiling over, but context makes it heavier. Her patience isn't just being tested by war logistics, it's being tested by her own house. The Hightowers, specifically the political maneuvering happening around Tumbleton, appear to be the target of that comment. Rhaenyra is not just fighting a war against Aegon and his allies at this point, she's fighting the exhausting reality that ruling requires patience she may not have much of left. This is a woman who has already sacrificed enormous amounts to sit on that throne, and every scene of her in this trailer shows the cost of that sacrifice creeping up on her. That emotional toll becomes even more visible in the very next moment, when Rhaenyra is shown clearly overwhelmed, asking someone if she hasn't already shown them mercy. The editing wants you to assume that question is aimed at Alicent, and it's a smart piece of misdirection, because these are two women who have spent decades locked in a slow-burning rivalry that started as friendship. But there's another thread worth considering here, one tied to Helaena. If Helaena is carrying knowledge about the fate of her son Maelor, something she may be hiding out of grief, fear, or protection, then Alicent's quiet, tense expression in this trailer could be less about Rhaenyra directly and more about the dread of Rhaenyra eventually learning the truth. That's the kind of layered storytelling this show tends to lean on, where a single look on someone's face can be doing 3 or 4 different emotional jobs at once. Then there's Aegon, and his moment in this trailer is almost the emotional opposite of everything else we've seen so far. Where Cole is desperate and Rhaenyra is furious, Aegon looks hollow. He's shown in a low, quiet moment, gently touching one of Sunfire's scales, and it's a small gesture that says a lot. Sunfire was gravely wounded at the Battle of Rook's Rest, and Aegon has been dealing with catastrophic injuries of his own since that fight. This scene suggests he hasn't given up hope that his dragon is still alive out there somewhere, clinging to that bond the same way he's clinging to his own recovery. It's a quiet character beat sandwiched between two much louder, more violent storylines, and that contrast is deliberate. The trailer is showing you 3 different men at 3 different breaking points, Cole physically broken, Aegon emotionally broken, and soon, as we'll get into, Aemond spiraling in his own dangerous direction. Each of them represents a different way war can hollow a person out, and this season looks determined to make you sit with all three. If Aegon's scene in this trailer is quiet devastation, Aemond's is something closer to obsession sharpening into something dangerous. He's shown shirtless, training with Blackfyre, the ancestral Valyrian steel sword that once belonged to Aegon the Conqueror himself. That detail alone is worth sitting with, because Blackfyre isn't just a weapon, it's a symbol of legitimacy stretching back to the founding of the dynasty. Aemond wielding it while framed beside a weirwood bed, a tree deeply tied to old magic and prophetic visions, suggests his ambitions have started fusing with something closer to destiny, at least in his own mind. He genuinely seems to believe he's meant for something larger than being the spare, overlooked brother, and training with the sword of the Conqueror is exactly the kind of imagery a man convinced of his own greatness would surround himself with. Then there's the scene of him on his knees in front of Alys Rivers, and the way it's framed matters just as much as what's being said. There's something almost ritualistic about the positioning, like a man kneeling before someone he believes holds real power over him, and that reading tracks with what's actually happening in the story. Alys Rivers has her own agenda entirely separate from helping Aemond for Aemond's sake. Her ultimate goal appears to be securing control of Harrenhal, one of the most cursed, strategically valuable strongholds in Westeros, and everything she does with Aemond seems calculated to keep him isolated, dependent, and useful to that goal. That's a chilling dynamic to watch unfold. A grieving, ambitious young man who thinks he's found a source of guidance and power, when in reality he may just be a tool being carefully shaped for someone else's benefit. His voiceover accusing Rhaenyra of defiling the Targaryen legacy, of being an illegitimate ruler, fits perfectly into that manipulation. Whether those are entirely his own convictions or convictions Alys has been quietly reinforcing is the real question worth asking as the season continues. That question becomes even more interesting once you consider the mechanics of what Alys might actually be. In this world, the ability to see visions, walk through dreams, or communicate across time isn't something every character can do. It's an incredibly rare gift called green sight, tied to being a warg, someone capable of entering the mind of an animal, taken to its rarest possible extreme. Being born a warg at all is uncommon. Being born with a deeper ability to become a green seer, someone who can access visions of the past, present, and sometimes the future through the ancient weirwood network, is far rarer still, an ability that shows up in only a small fraction of an already small number of people. Historically, this power has clustered around bloodlines connected to the God's Eye region, where the old magic tied to the first men and the children of the forest runs deepest, which is also why Harrenhal, sitting right at that location, carries so much unexplained weight in these stories. If Alys Rivers has real ties to that same old lineage, her fixation on reclaiming Harrenhal isn't just political ambition, it might be something closer to a return to a birthright soaked in old, dangerous magic. Helaena complicates this even further, because what she experiences doesn't cleanly match the traditional rules of green sight at all. Her visions seem to move forward rather than backward, and she appears able to slip into other people's dreams rather than simply witnessing distant events, which isn't how this ability has traditionally worked in this universe. That inconsistency isn't necessarily a mistake. It might be the show deliberately building something new around her character, expanding the mythology in a direction the source material never fully explored. Whether her gift eventually gets a name, or stays this ambiguous and unsettling, it's clearly being treated as something significant enough to keep returning to. From there, the trailer pulls hard back into the war itself, and Rhaenyra's arrival near Tumbleton is one of the more visually striking beats in the entire preview. She lands in a new, more commanding outfit, her dragon settling beside Silverwing while the dragon seeds, the group of unlikely, low-born dragon riders bonded to previously unclaimed dragons, watch the city below. They've reportedly been observing Tumbleton for days at this point, waiting, and whatever finally triggers Rhaenyra's fury in this scene seems to be the last straw in a long build-up. Her fury here isn't impulsive, it's the release valve on tension that's been building since the opening council scene about her patience running out. This is a queen who has spent this entire season absorbing loss after loss, and this moment feels like the first time she fully steps into open, declared war rather than reactive defense. That declaration ripples outward through several smaller but important beats. We see brief glimpses of Rhaenyra moving through the throne room, the physical seat of power she's fought so hard to hold, while in a separate, quieter scene, Alicent appears to be speaking with Helaena, likely trying to explain, or brace her, for the reality that Rhaenyra now rules outright. Above the unfolding chaos at Tumbleton, Vermithor and his rider Hugh Hammer fly overhead, and Hugh's concern here isn't strategic, it's personal, since his wife is reportedly still inside the city now surrounded by green soldiers. War stops being an abstract concept the moment it threatens someone you love, and that's exactly the emotional pressure this shot is putting on him. Meanwhile, Daemon, never one for patience himself, tells Rhaenyra bluntly that they should have burned their enemies when they had the chance, a brutal, uncompromising stance that puts him at odds with Rhaenyra's more measured instincts, even now. On the other side of that looming battle, Aemond Hightower is shown formulating strategy of his own, describing a disciplined mind as something capable of standing against even the most savage beast, a clear reference to the dragons themselves, and a signal that the Greens aren't approaching this fight blindly. And in one of the quieter, more human moments buried inside all this military tension, Rhaenyra is shown lying awake in what used to be her father's bed, unable to sleep, the weight of everything finally catching up to her in the stillness of night rather than the noise of battle. That sleepless night doesn't stay quiet for long. Rhaenyra eventually gets up and goes to Daemon instead, and while the trailer doesn't spell out every detail, it doesn't need to. This is a woman carrying the full weight of a crown, a war, and a grief she hasn't had time to process, and in that particular moment, being alone in her father's bed becomes unbearable. It's a small human beat tucked inside a trailer otherwise dominated by armies and dragons, and it's a reminder that no matter how much power Rhaenyra holds, she's still someone searching for comfort in the middle of chaos. While that plays out, Aemond's voiceover returns, accusing Rhaenyra of defiling their house, laid over a very different scene entirely, the dragon seeds at Tumbleton bantering with each other like soldiers trying to release tension before a fight. Ulf White says something that clearly unsettles Hugh Hammer, though the trailer never lets us hear exactly what it was. That kind of deliberate omission is worth paying attention to, because these two men are already carrying very different emotional loads, Hugh worried about a wife trapped inside the city they're about to attack, and whatever Ulf said seems to have hit a nerve neither of them are fully addressing yet. Then comes one of the more visually loaded moments in the entire trailer, an overhead shot of Rhaenyra descending from the Iron Throne, crown still on her head, and the way the melted swords are arranged beneath her almost forms the silhouette of a raven. That's not likely to be an accident. It strongly echoes the imagery of the three-eyed raven, a figure tied directly to Criston Rivers, someone with deep, unmistakable ties to the Blackwood bloodline and the same old magic connected to Greensight and the Weirwood network. Time doesn't move in a straight line for characters connected to that power, and there's already precedent in this universe for visions and messages moving across decades through those ancient trees. Whether this shot is foreshadowing something literal or simply reinforcing the show's fascination with fate, prophecy, and inherited power, it's the kind of detail that rewards a second and third rewatch. From there, the trailer shifts fully into war footage, Roderick Dustin and the Winterwolves arriving alongside Daemon's Riverlords, all converging on Tumbleton in what looks like the first major clash of this stretch of the season. Criston Cole reappears here too, giving what sounds like a rallying speech to a noticeably smaller group of men than he commanded before, which lines up with the idea that his forces have already been badly thinned out. At the same time, Gwaine Hightower appears to be making his own decision, potentially breaking away to join Ormond's army at Tumbleton instead, and the timing of the battle overlaid with Cole's speech suggests we may be looking at two separate, brutal conflicts unfolding close together rather than a single unified battle. We get one more quiet gut punch buried inside the chaos, a quick flash of Daemon speaking with Rhaenyra while she's visibly shaken, likely tied to the emotional fallout still hanging over her daughter's situation and everything unresolved between Rhaenyra and her family. Elsewhere, Rhaena remains at the Aerie with Sheepstealer, having asked Daemon to keep her location hidden so Rhaenyra won't come looking for her, though that secret feels fragile at best, especially if anyone close to Rhaenyra starts putting the pieces together. It's easy to imagine this becoming the seed of Rhaena adopting a new identity altogether, quietly stepping away from her name and her past the way certain characters in this world have had to before, in order to survive. Then there's the casket. A brief shot of Alan of Hull standing in formal armor beside a solemn procession, and the trailer offers zero confirmation of who's inside. Given how many major characters are circling danger this season, that ambiguity is almost certainly intentional, designed to make you spend the next several days running through every worst-case scenario in your head. Everything builds toward the battle sequences that close out the trailer, quick, overlapping shots of Tumbleton and what looks like the beginning of Butcher's Ball, cut together with rising intensity to signal that this stretch of episodes is about to hit harder and faster than anything the show has done so far this season. And there's real reason to believe the story isn't done expanding either. In recent interviews, showrunner Ryan Condal has hinted that other dragons still unaccounted for in this era, including the wild dragons known as Cannibal and Grey Ghost, could still make an appearance before this story reaches its end, whether that's later this season or further down the road. What makes this trailer so effective isn't just the war, or the dragons, or the political maneuvering. It's watching every major character reach a breaking point at the same time. Cole physically shattered, Aegon emotionally hollowed out, Aemond spiraling toward something dangerous, and Rhaenyra caught between grief and the crushing weight of a crown she fought so hard to win. Houses don't fall because of one battle. They fall because of moments exactly like these, quiet cracks forming right before everything gives way. Episode 5 looks like the point where those cracks finally start to show. If this breakdown helped you catch details you missed in the trailer, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me who you think is in that casket. I'll see you back here for the full episode breakdown very soon.